It can only be Desi Romano's in Chalmette. Look at this. Are you kidding me? You want some good seafood? You want some good side effects? You want some good beef? 3809 Paris Road in Chalmette's where you got to come. Look at this pasta. I'll take what's on top of that any day of the week. It's all at Desi Romano's here in Chalmette on Paris Road. Come on by and find out for yourself. I know you will like it. And a pleasant good evening to you. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv coming at you one more time following another big sports weekend. Good news for the Saints, good news for LSU, maybe not as good for Tulane. Lots of prep news to talk about, and we'll do it, as always, with our regular panel, including Brian Allee-Walsh of sportsNOLA.com. Brian, good evening.
Kenny, thanks, buddy. Always a pleasure to be here. Do we dare mention the P word with the New Orleans Saints? I think we can right now when they're 4-5 going to Oakland. We'll see what happens.
Pedestrian, huh?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay. Torrance Small, there you go. Former New Orleans Saint wide receiver. Good to have you with us, my friend.
How we doing, Ken? Hey, one thing I like to say, these guys came back in the second quarter. Second quarter looks nice. See how we finished up with the third and fourth quarter? But I like what the Saints are doing so far.
It's all about the final result. That's how you arrive at every conclusion is, did you get it done? They got it done. We'll talk about it coming up extensively with our special guest who's here today as well. He was a special player. We got him as a running back here for crying out loud. Against who else? The Atlanta Falcons. Why not? But then he'd do this too. He had no fear. He'd go inside against anybody and get his face mask grabbed and tackled to the ground by Packers or in the seam against Bengals. Perfect throw there, by the way. But look at the concentration to catch that ball and hold on and get where he wants to go. Oh, against the Falcons again. Get out of here. There's a stiff arm. You want that? Yeah, I can do that. Where do you think that Chris Ivory learned from? Henry Charles, Saints Hall of Famer. Henry, it's great to have you with us, man.
Hey, it was good to be here and to see the Saints and see them beat our biggest rivalry. And I felt this here exhilarating effort out of the Saints to, overcome what they've been experiencing during the year. And it was great to see them make a great goal line stance. But also, I want to throw in here, too, that K-State, Kansas State University is #1.
Somehow he'd get the Wildcats in there. Imagine
Thanks
that.
to Bama, huh?
When we return in just a moment, we'll have highlights of the Saints' thrilling 31-27 victory over the Atlanta Falcons when Sports NOLA TV continues from Desi Romano's in Chalmette. All three of those wins against division rivals, and the Saints spoiled the party. One of those was against a team that Henry Charles played against, the Los Angeles Rams, back in 1978. Saints won that game 10-3. Henry, you remember that game at all?
Yes, I do, because we in fact, I think we were like pretty close to making the playoffs at the time.
You were, I got you right.
and we knew if we beat the Rams that we had Pittsburgh coming up, and if we beat them and Oakland, we could make the playoffs. So, but we went out there and played them a good game, and in fact, that week the week before we played San Francisco, so we stayed on the West Coast.
Stayed there
for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So then we went down to we won at San Francisco. Then we went down to LA and we won. And we thought we were on our way then. We thought this is the year we were going to make the playoffs.
And you had the Steelers and lost the game in the final minute or so.
Exactly.
Rocky Bleier catches a pass in the flat and runs for a touchdown. I remember it very well. That's when the Steelers were the Steelers, when they were the dynasty, and you had them.
And that same year, we had the Oakland Raiders 35-7 at halftime.
Yeah, well, that was Monday Night Football.
Exactly.
It was 79, I think. But that said, 78, 79 were really good offensive teams for the New Orleans Saints, and Henry was a big reason for that. Okay, Saints beat the Falcons. Now let's talk about it. Brian, when you look at what transpired, clearly you had to be pleased with what you saw of this defense. They're not a great defense. They're not a good defense, but they're a defense that seems to be improving a little bit.
Absolutely. When you hold a team like the Falcons to 46 yards rushing, you do what they did to them inside the red zone, inside the 5 and 10. You've done something. Now, granted, people are going to look at yards and points, and they could do the same thing in 09, Kenny. But what we're seeing the last couple, 3 weeks is this defense is making plays at crucial times, and that's important.
Oh, I think you hit it right on the head. I think you hit it right on the head. They're making plays.
Thank you. It happens
Can
so
I hit
seldom.
you on yours? But I think you have it right, Brian. They're making plays when they have to. It's not pretty, but they're making plays when they have to, and that is the key to them winning ball games right now. Like you said, back in 2009, they had that bend but don't break mentality. But the one thing I like about them more than anything, they have fight in them. This team is showing that they have some fight. Early in the year, we didn't see any of this type of attitude that they have right now. They're getting their swag back a little bit. They have a little bit more fight. That's the one thing I like.
Henry, it's pretty ironic that we're talking about a Saints win against an unbeaten team because of their defense, because their defense really did win this game in the fourth quarter for them.
Well, I've watched the Saints as they've gone through the season, and like Torrance said, early in the year, you didn't see that fight. Now you begin to see that fight, and I think that you can attribute it, a lot of this to now you're getting some people healthy, they're getting to know each other, and so now, they're playing better as a unit, but they still need to eliminate some mistakes.
Yeah, they do. Now, Hawthorne was one of those. He's healthier and he's playing better, and now their linebacker position suddenly looks a little bit more athletic with Vilma playing alongside Lofton and Hawthorne.
I think what you're hearing from the defense, Kenny, is that they've accepted their status, and that is it's not a great defense, okay? And it may not be filled with Pro Bowl type players, but before, instead of embracing it, I think they're embracing it now. You know what? You can bend but don't break, and there's nothing wrong with that kind of defense. That's the way the NFL is today.
It is, Torrance, and obviously you still have to give the offense credit. They scored 31 points. I mean, you scored 31. Yeah. It's ho-hum. That's about what we expect from them, right?
Yes, but and that's what I want to say. That's the balance of the team. They kind of accepting who they are, and they know they can rely a little bit more on the offense because the offense is so explosive and can score at any time. But that's what makes the team great. They don't have the Pro Bowl type players, but they're making Pro Bowl type plays at the right time.
And Henry, this was a game where you had a chance to thoroughly enjoy it. You were sitting a couple of seats from me, so I know how much you enjoyed it. And one of the reasons you enjoyed it was how active the tight ends were in this game. And of course, we're talking about, in my estimation, the greatest tight end in the history of the NFL, and Tony Gonzalez, and an heir apparent, a guy that physically could end up being that guy if he plays for 12 to 15 years in Jimmy Graham.
Exactly. Gonzalez, he right now he's the top tight end ever. But I see good things coming out of Jimmy Graham. He's going to be great if he can stay healthy and learn the game in and out. Then I think he's going to be great. He's going to help the Saints for a long time, and I think he's going to have a great career.
And Brian, one of the reasons that the Saints have improved is the fact that their defense is playing better. They're playing well enough to give them a chance, and the fact that they're running the football well.
Absolutely. In fact, Joe Vitz made an interesting comment to the Atlanta media in their Wednesday presser last week about how during his absence he felt like they were underutilizing Ingram and Chris Ivory. And I think this is something that we've certainly addressed on this show, and I know other media as well. And I think that's right on. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Darren Sproles comes back and what role he takes beyond his return chores. Where does he fit back in the offensive game plan? Because I'll tell you what, right now, Ingram and Ivory are making it happen in the running game.
And I know it's strange to say because we all agreed that Pierre Thomas was their best all-around running back when the season started. And Torrance, in my mind, he's the guy that may be the loser in this because Darren Sproles is clearly your third down back and your situational guy. And Ingram suddenly looks like a different back, and Ivory is what we thought he would be if they gave him a chance. So as a result, you only have one football. Somebody's going to lose out, and it might be Pierre Thomas.
And that's the thing. You only have one football, and you have all these guys that can run the ball. The thing is, we never said any of these guys cannot play or not capable of playing. It's just getting the opportunity to play. And right now, Pierre Thomas, great running back. He's been given his opportunity, and he's been showing up. I love him. I say keep him because he's our best screen player. He can catch, run, block. He can do it all. Ivory and Ingram, those two, we have to make a choice of which one we want to play with. I said we try to trade one, try to get something out of them at the end of the year, try to get a defensive player because I think they're valuable. We can get something for them. I like to make that move, but for this year, hey, One of them going to have to be picked. One's going to have to sit.
Both of you guys were receivers in the NFL. Henry, as a tight end, you watched some drops yesterday. Look, they're going to happen. You drop balls. Torrance dropped balls. I know it's frustrating. A couple of those drops cost the Saints possession. Jimmy Graham dropped one, but he made up for it big time. Devery Henderson had a deep ball he could have caught. That was tough, but then he had a possession reception that he dropped that really hurt the Saints late in the game when they could have taken control of the game.
Well, the way I look at it is that if it touches your hand, you got to catch it. That's the bottom line.
Like Lance Moore did with one hand? Yeah.
Exactly. If it touches your hand, and that's my belief, and that's, and I practiced that. I practiced catching balls, so when that ball touches my hand, it's mine.
Put it away, Brian. And obviously these guys, for the most part, do, but Devery Henderson's got to do a better job.
Absolutely. And Lance Moore is the consummate guy that you're talking about. That ball over the middle where he had flypaper for a hand. He's such a reliable receiver. And going back to Jimmy Graham for just a second, I agree with you totally, Henry. As long as he stays healthy and keeps his hand screwed on straight, and as long as number 9 is behind center, because he makes such a difference.
And real quickly, Marcus Colston, I love the guy. He just goes about his business. He's now tied for the all-time record of touchdowns in Saints history.
Here's the guy. Doesn't say much, but he talks a lot with his play. He talks a hell of a lot with his play. He goes out and he produces, and that's what it's about in the NFL, producing.
When we return in just a moment, we'll take a trip around the NFL as SportsNOLAtv continues from Desi Romano's in Chalmette on Paris Road on WHNO. Our SportsNOLAtv trivia question of the evening. Chris Ivory's 56-yard touchdown run Sunday was the Saints' longest since 2006. Question: who holds the franchise record for longest rushing play in Saints history? Is it George Rogers, Deuce McAllister, Reggie Bush, or Tony Galbraith? Think about it. I've got an idea. Got it down to 2. I think I got the answer, but we'll see if I do, and we'll see if you do as well. We'll have the answer a little bit later on in the show. Ken Trahan, Desi Romano, SportsNOLAtv. Glad to have you with us here on WHNO. The NFL had another intriguing weekend as we start to see the divisional races draw a little bit closer in some instances and a little bit further out in other instances. The Indianapolis Colts rolled over over Jacksonville on Thursday night, 27-10. Baltimore crushed the Saints' next opponent, the Raiders, 55-20. It was Denver rolling over Carolina. Cam Newton's looking more and more like Vince Young every day. Cincinnati took care of the Giants, and I mean just beat them easily. Tennessee, how do you explain this? Just demolished Miami at Miami. Minnesota Vikings, Saints better start paying attention to them in this last wild card spot chase. Beat the Lions 34-24. New England, well, they always find a way to get it done. They did against Buffalo again, 37-31. It was Tampa Bay. Ever since they lost to the Saints, they've played well, beating San Diego 34-24. The North Turner regime appears to be coming to an end. Seattle over the Jets 28-7. How long before Tebow starts? It's Dallas beating Philadelphia after Mike Vick went out with a concussion, 38-23. How about this? An overtime game in the NFL that finishes in a tie. Kiss your sister, would you? Rams and the 49ers, 24-all, and then very impressive win, inclement weather, Soldier Field. Houston finds a way, and they beat the Bears 13-6. And then, of course, the Monday night affair looks like a little bit of a clunker, the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, we take a look around the NFL. We always like to get a take from our guys about what they were impressed with. Brian, what got your attention?
2 games. I think the first one involves the Bengals and Giants. The fact that Drew Brees has thrown a touchdown pass in 52 consecutive games. Eli Manning hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in 3 consecutive games. Go figure. Now, that's incredible when you think about that. And then last night's game in Chicago, Houston, a dome team, goes up and beats the Bears in that bear weather. I thought that was a very impressive win.
Torrance?
Well, I like the Cincinnati game as well. I was very surprised that the Giants went up there and didn't play as well as they did.
Late an 8.
Yeah,
late an 8.
Basically late 8. I was very surprised. And the other one is the Indianapolis Colts, 6-3. Here's a team that's, if you look at them now, they're in the playoffs as of now, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And I'm looking for them to be in the playoffs at the end.
Henry?
Well, I think Cincinnati was a great game too. That I thought the Giants would easily win, and it just. But I'm not afraid of them falling behind because That's their style. They always, you know, at the end, they might drop a few, but then when it comes down to the end, the coach has them ready.
Well, certainly, I think the Houston win was the most significant win of the weekend because, as was stated here, they are a team unquestionably that can adapt to situations and beat you a number of different ways. So I certainly like what they are doing and what they did last night. Very impressed. And then the Minnesota Vikings certainly have gotten my attention. Adrian Peterson is healthy again. He looks great. Ponder's doing enough. And this is a team that has a chance to get into the playoffs just a year removed from looking awful. So that's pretty good stuff. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have played very well since the Saints beat them out there, and they're in the chase as well. And they're scoring points because they're running the ball very well and therefore making it easier for Josh Freeman in the passing game. So that's my take. Let's take a look at the NFC South standings and how things are after this past weekend. I mentioned the Buccaneers, and they're still a game ahead of the Saints. And they had their head above 500 at 5-4. Carolina, pretty much forget them, stick a fork in them. Saints are at Oakland, Tampa Bay at Carolina, so Tampa Bay, another good shot at a win. Atlanta, Arizona, and Carolina playing the Buccaneers. Okay, Torrance, what do you think about this division now?
Well,
One team gets in, two teams get in, or what?
If it goes to 9-7, Saints have opportunity to get in there. If it's 10-6, they only have one more game they can lose, and they could perhaps get in. I think it's going to be the Tampa, Seattle, or it can be the Saints that can get in there.
Right?
Yeah, I don't agree with the teams you mentioned because I think Seattle is certainly going to be. The one thing I think we probably will agree on is that they're playing for the 6th seed here.
Yes.
The second wild
Definitely.
card. Okay.
Yes.
And you've got right now probably 5 teams that are in that mix. And I think Tampa Bay is one of those teams that is going to come back to the group. And I think if the Saints, I've thought that they've got to go 4-1 in this 5-game stretch. They're 1-0 right now, and they're off to a good start.
Henry?
Well, I'm pulling for the Saints, and I think they control their own destiny at this time. If they continue to win and maintain consistent, make less mistakes, I think they can.
Well, they're in the tough part of their schedule now, but you have to look at when you play people and just how relative it is. They're playing the Raiders, coming off of giving up 55 points. They're going to have to play the Falcons again in Atlanta. You know that's going to be tough. The Giants, suddenly they don't look so invincible of sorts, and the Saints have always matched up well with them. And then the 49ers, how much of an effect will Alex Smith have from being concussed? And if Colin Kaepernick's their quarterback, they're coming to New Orleans. I think the Saints have a pretty good chance to gain revenge, Brian. So maybe the schedule isn't as daunting as we thought, although it still is challenging.
You know, I agree with you totally. And the San Francisco situation's one to monitor because they definitely have a better chance if Alex Smith, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if Alex Smith isn't under center.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, the one thing about the Saints is, I don't care who we bring, who they play or who they're going against. One thing, they cannot just stop this offense. This offense is strong enough. The thing is, can the defense continue to come up with plays when needed? That'll give out the Saints opportunity to win.
Henry?
And I agree with Torrance that, hey, the defense got to come to play, but he said something earlier too. You got to have that balance. You got to have the offense clicking, and you got to have the defense clicking.
And I'll tell you one other aspect of the Saints we need to mention. Thomas Morstead. This guy, if he doesn't get serious recognition for the Pro Bowl this year, he never will. He's been as brilliant as you can be punting the football directionally, with his hang time, with the distance he gets. Kicking off, he's been great. And the Saints have covered punts very well. So I love what Morstead does. He gives this team a very, very big boost on a weekly basis. And Garrett Hartley made a field goal he had to make yesterday. That's important as well. So special teams, pretty good overall. And I think in close games down the stretch, Brian, this could be a difference.
I agree. And Thomas, Steve Spagnuolo went out of his way at today's press conference to throw kudos at Thomas Morstead for that punt out of the end zone at the end of the game. Made the Falcons have to drive that much farther. You know, the only thing about Thomas, he's certainly deserving, Kenny, and I know we both agree on that. He just needs to get some fan votes to help him, and this is where the Saints fans can step up and get out and vote. You can vote as many times as you want, and that's how Thomas is going to get in.
He is very deserving, and he continues to prove it on a week-to-week basis, and what a weapon to have anywhere, in particular, indoors. When we return in just a moment, it's our Hot Seat segment. We'll ask Brian and the panel who should play for the national championship in college football when sportsNOLAtv continues. Our sportsNOLAtv question of the evening, all about the Saints running game. Chris Ivory's 56-yard touchdown run Sunday was the Saints' longest since 2006. Who holds the franchise record for longest rushing play? There are your 4 choices. The correct answer is George Rogers, 79 yards, Cleveland Browns, 1981. Remember the run on grass. And the Saints get it done in Cleveland behind George Rogers, Heisman Trophy winner and NFL Rookie of the Year that season as well. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv from Desi Romano's Paris Road in Chalmette. Time now for our hot seat segment where we put Brian Allee-Walsh on the hot seat about a very topical topic. And today it's all about the national championship as we study the BCS standings as they exist right now. 3 unbeaten teams, 4 one-loss teams in the BCS top 10. So you look at the list. And Brian, the question is, which 2 teams should play for the national championship?
Kenny, that's a very compelling question. I'm glad you asked it of me. Well, obviously, based on the rankings right now, you've got Kansas State playing Oregon. I'm going to answer it this way. I think that you still have a chance for an SEC team getting in there with either Alabama or Georgia going to the SEC championship. I wouldn't count that out, provided USC beats Notre Dame at the end of the season and K-State could stumble. And now Oregon may look to me like the team that might get in. So I would say right now, I'd like to see Oregon and Notre Dame in the national championship.
Oh, how can you leave out an SEC team? That's who you would like to see? Notre Dame? I like Notre Dame. I think you guys are playing well. You're doing great. But for me, what I would like to see, SEC champ against Oregon. Oregon, you've been close a lot of years. I love to see you get there and finally show or try to prove that you're worthy of a national championship, but I like to see it against an SEC team. These other teams you've been playing against, they haven't been playing any defense. Nobody has really challenged you on defense. You've been able to do what you want to do. You just outscore people, but I love to see you get against one of these SEC teams with a great defense and see what you can do there.
Henry, I know where this is going, but go ahead, man.
Well, see, I disagree with both of them.
Oh, surprise.
And the fact is, last year you gave a gimme to the SEC team. I don't think Alabama should have been there because they lost one game, and another team, the top team, should have been there that was undefeated. Okay, now K-State is undefeated, Oregon is undefeated, and I feel like those 2 teams should play for the national championship if they continue to play and they win.
This is the thing. Listen, if we could put that list back up, you have 6 SEC teams, 6 of them in
How
the
many?
top 10. 6 in the top 10. The only reason these other teams have an opportunity because the SEC is beating up on each other. If they hadn't beaten up on each other, it'd easily be 2 SEC teams, easily 2 in there.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
That's right.
Look, the one thing I will say, I agree with Henry on this.
There you
I
go.
think
Need a friend, huh?
No, I think K-State and
Need a
Oregon.
friend.
I think K-State and Oregon would be an intriguing matchup at season's end for the national championship. I love the SEC. I think there's some quality teams in there right now, but I don't know if there's one team that comes out of the SEC that deserves to be in the national championship. Johnny Football goes to Tuscaloosa and beats Alabama. Now they're supposed to be a superior football team. They weren't that day.
SEC team. And again, look, guys, look. I know you guys. You want the scores. You want a lot of highlights. You want the flash and all. Go watch Oregon. Go watch K-State. They're gonna put 50 up, regardless of what defense they're playing. But if they come to the SEC, now we'll see what they really can do. Can they really play ball? Because they're going to get some stops against them. And can their defense hold up against the SEC offense?
Let's do the math. 9-1 versus 10-0.
Against who? Against who?
That's
the question.
It doesn't matter. They play
We got
quality.
6.
They play. Hey, what's
Name
the
a
record? What's the
Name a
record?
conference.
9-1. Let's do the math.
9-1.
9-1.
Conference with 6 players. Not only do we have six in the top 10.
And all 6 of them got
6
one.
in the top 10. Now
All
I put
6 of
LSU.
them
I put LSU up against K-State. We can go down that list. That's those 6 that's in would beat K-State and Oregon.
But you can't disqualify a K-State
I can't help because
or a
they-
Notre
they-
Dame or an Oregon because
I'm
they
not
don't play in
disqualifying.
the SEC.
Well, then put them in the Sugar Bowl. Put them in the Orange Bowl. They got 3-4 other bowls. They can go in Rose Bowl. They can go to any of those bowls except the National Championship Bowl.
Torrance,
That's
Alabama
it.
had a chance to make a statement, and they didn't do it.
Hey,
They didn't do it.
Within the conference.
LSU had a
Within
chance
the
to make a
conference.
statement,
Who
didn't
does
do
Oregon?
it.
Who does Oregon have to play? Who would have to make a statement against?
I'm not
Who does
disagreeing with
K-State
you
have to
there.
make
I'm
a
not
statement
disagreeing
against?
with you there.
Nobody. But the SEC has to make a statement week in, week out. They have to make statements all the time.
He was right.
All the time.
Last year they got their mulligan.
SEC all the time.
Exactly. Now, where did Texas A&M come from?
They,
Oh no!
no, it's not where they
What
come from.
conference
It's where
did
they
Texas
at.
A&M
It's
come
where
from?
are they now?
No,
Where they now? Because they worthy to be in the SEC. That's why they're there.
But
SEC.
But they left because they were good and they beat that SEC team, right?
Look, because they're
In
worthy
their
to
building,
be.
in their
Okay.
stadium.
And guess what?
From the Big
You got a
12.
new coach. They got a new coach, and he went out and he recruited SEC type players.
It's
That's
time.
why.
All they have.
This could go on
No,
all
that's a new
night.
quarterback.
The gavel means it's time for the judge to render a judgment. I mean, I heard a
Judge,
lot of stuff here.
Judge,
that
you
was-
sure enough
I heard
look
a lot
nice.
of
You
stuff
look
here that
nice
was
today.
pretty interesting.
Hit that, hit
Let me
him with the
touch on a
gavel.
few of these things, and I'll tell you what I think. Number one, Texas A&M lost at home twice. They're not even in this discussion. So they went to Alabama and won. That's wonderful. They lost at home to Florida and LSU. At home. They're not in this discussion. Are you serious? When you're talking about Alabama, listen, if they went out, they deserve some credit and they deserve to be considered. But I really think voter fatigue comes in when it comes to Alabama. I think because they've lost a game and because the voters, the people are maybe getting tired of seeing them, they won't get that kind of support. LSU's got 2 losses. They're not going to be in it, even though they're a good football team. And then you look at the other SEC teams, and there's an argument to be made across the board. But there's one SEC team very clearly, to me, that would belong in the national championship game if they went out. The Georgia Bulldogs. They beat Florida. If they beat Alabama as well as a 1-loss team, how do you deny them with the schedule they've played and the quality of the competition they play? Torrance correctly points out the SEC is far superior, and I stress far superior to any other conference in the land. It isn't even close. The computers, the people, everyone. 6 teams in the top 9, not just the top 10, in the top 9 in succession. And yes, they have beaten each other up on a regular basis, so that makes it prohibitive. Now, from the consumer point of view, I think it would be great for Kansas State and Notre Dame to play for the championship because they haven't been there. Oregon was against Auburn just a couple of years ago. It would be great for college football if Kansas State and Notre Dame played for it. Now, I don't think Notre Dame is in the same class as some of the top 3 or 4 teams we're talking about, but they're good. I don't think Kansas State is in that class either. I've watched them play twice. They're good, though. Bill Snyder does a phenomenal job, and Colin Klein is so important to that football team. But in my mind, Oregon, unquestionably, if they win out, belongs there because of who they played and what they do offensively. The opponent, to me, it all depends on what happens with Georgia. If Georgia wins out, I think it should be Oregon and Georgia personally. And that's what I'm thinking. We'll take a timeout here. When we return, we'll take a look at highlights of LSU's victory over Mississippi State, and we'll also study Tulane's loss at Memphis as sportsNOLAtv continues from Desi Romano's on Paris Road in Chalmette. I'm the judge. I get the final say. Back in a moment. mobro.co/sportsnola. Check it out. It's the right thing to do, and it's intelligent for you to partake in that course of action because it can be preventative from the greatest killer that we know. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, continuing from Desi Romano's Paris Road in Chalmette. The LSU Tigers, well, they had to mentally and physically rebound from a game that was crushing, a game they should have won against Alabama, but did not. And they had a pretty good Mississippi State team coming to Tiger Stadium, and it started well. Bulldogs hitting for a touchdown early on. And listen, there might have been a little bit of fatigue early on as far as LSU is concerned, but then the turnover certainly gets them going here. And I thought they were able to show what they were capable of doing. And one reason for that is Zach Mettenberger and Jarvis Landry. This combination looked pretty good, Brian.
Well, I'll tell you what, as long as Mettenberger continues his play, what we've seen the last couple of weeks, Kenny, this team is certainly bound for a big bowl, no doubt about it.
Torrance, I mean, listen, they can play with anybody. They can beat anybody.
Yeah. The one big change, and we talked about it, guys, is the offensive coordinator had to let loose a little bit. He was too conventional, just run, and they wasn't running the same running back. There was a running back by committee, and they throw the ball. We had to see they have some young receivers, some great receivers. They just need to let them show their talent, throw the ball, and that's what they're doing right now.
They are. J.C. Copeland gets into the end zone here, and Henry, I know you watch college football very closely. Here's a game changer. Now, that's a 14-point swing there, Henry, when you get a pick six from your own end zone and take it back the other way. Craig lost it.
Well, from what I've seen of LSU, the defense has picked it up. They're playing much better and they're playing consistently.
Yeah.
So I think, if they had to play Alabama again, I think they would beat Alabama.
The unfortunate thing is that there weren't many people in Tiger Stadium that watched that 100-yard return for a touchdown. They'd already cleared out. But no, I agree with you totally, T, is that but you got to give a lot of credit to Mettenberger. Yeah, I think they took the leash off him,
yes.
But he was also making the plays, and that's why I think they were able to keep feeding him.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I want to add this too, and I just believe this to be true. I don't have any firsthand knowledge, but I really think they were saving quite a bit of their passing offense for Alabama. Things you did not see all season long, you saw against Alabama. Now, well, the floodgates have opened, and you see that they do have the capability of making some plays in the passing game. They win this game 37-17. Now it's Ole Miss coming in, and they have a chance to play for a very good bowl game if they win out, Brian.
And Kenny, I tell you what, I think we should acknowledge the rebuilt offensive line has done a really good job for Mettenberger.
Well, they have Trey
and the
Turner
running
of St.
game,
Augustine and
They
Vidal
really have.
Alexander,
Yeah.
a pair of freshmen have played very, very well. Tulane hit the road to the Liberty Bowl, site of one of their great accomplishments over the years, actually two of them in recent years, but this was not the result they were hoping for. A nice dump off here, and they get some yardage out of this. And again, this is a team that cannot turn the ball over. They don't have a margin to do that. And they turned it over, 4 times in this game. That was a touchdown pass to Ryan Grant. Look, they got to score a lot of points, and they can't turn the ball over, Brian. And they didn't do enough in terms of scoring points, and they turned the ball over.
And Ryan Griffin had been playing pretty much error-free prior to this game, and you're right. And I think also they were down inside the 5, I think, Kenny, and they run 4 plays, and they've had trouble running the ball. It kind of surprised me that Curtis Johnson called 4 consecutive running plays.
Well, they had 5 turnovers in the game. They forced 3, but Ryan Grant, wide receiver, we talked about Ryan Griffin, but Ryan Grant's had a heck of a season. He had 11 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown. This kid's good, Torrance.
Oh, yes. Anytime you can get in double digits with catching the ball, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. Great quarterback also helps you out as well. So hopefully he can continue this. And I think with 2 more games left, if I'm not mistaken, hopefully he can continue this pattern.
And you look to the future. You had Jordan Batiste had a big game a couple of weeks ago, and then Darian Monroe had 2 interceptions in this game, the freshman from East St. John, which gives you hope for the future with some pretty good athletes that you're looking at and hoping to augment that with a good signing class. And then suddenly you can start to think about some positive things where Tulane football is concerned. Time now to turn our attention to high school football and our Arnold Carrier's New Orleans Bowl, New Orleans Quarterback Club, WHNOtv Channel 20, sportsNOLA.com Prep Player of the Week for week number 11, first week of the state playoffs. He is Carlos Henderson, the senior out of McDonough 35. You talk about blistering speed. This kid's sub 4.4. I've seen him many times. He had 117 receiving yards, 53 rushing yards, 174 return yards, 3 touchdowns, and for good measure, a 2-point conversion as McDonough 35, the number 21 seed, upset 12 seed at East Jefferson 28-21. Carlos Henderson is a commitment to Utah, where his brother is now, and he'll follow him there. And 35 moves on to the regional round of the playoffs against Salmon this coming weekend. He'll be honored at our year-end luncheon of the New Orleans Quarterback Club coming up the second week of December at the Cannery at 3803 Toulouse Street. So speed kills, Torrance. You can run, You got a future. He can really run.
Well, the one thing we always say is no replacement for speed. You can replace Brian, but you can't replace speed.
Yeah, no kidding.
Where did that come from?
He has no idea
Where's the love?
how to respond to that. You guys are beating each other up today. I'm enjoying this immensely.
Henry,
I'm thinking
hold
I'm
me
going to have to
back.
get between you guys at some point in time. Now, we mentioned high school football, of course, best coverage on the web at sportsNOLA.com to follow everything. And, of course, let's take a look at some of the pairings we have because it's a very busy regional round of the playoffs involving local teams. Some of the games locally here this weekend. At 5A, Dutchtown, a perennially powerful program that goes deep into the playoffs, and they produce some incredible players in recent years. Lyle Collins, Landon Collins. You think about Eddie Lacy at Alabama, and Dutchtown plays Rummel, the number 1 seed, who just looks lights out right now, and their brilliant cast with Damian Williams and Sethan Carter and company. And then Parkway is at Hahnville. Great win for the Tigers of Lou Valadon going to St. Paul's and winning, and they're at home. In 4A, we mentioned Salmon and McDonough 35. Chris Thomas got hurt for Salmon last week. Let's hope he recovers. 35 has speed, as we mentioned. That's a good matchup. Franklin Parish comes south to Vanderbilt Catholic and the state's leading rusher in Elijah McGuire, which ought to be a good football game as well. 3A, Notre Dame and Louis Cook, great program at St. Charles Catholic to take on the defending state champions, the Comets, who had a great comeback win at Westgate this past weekend. Jennings at La Ranger with their speed. La Ranger with a chance to get to the quarterfinals, and all LSU fans are watching Brazil, their outstanding player who's a Tiger commitment. Jules Sumner, a big win for the Cowboys last week, and they're at home against North DeSoto, who has to come a long way, so we'll see if Jules Sumner can get it done playing at home at Kentwood this coming week. And 2A, Episcopal is at Riverside. How about Deuce Wallace, the freshman for Riverside? 244 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and a big win this past weekend at Homer. And they're at home. Springfield, good football team at North Lake Christian. That's a district rematch, which ought to be a good football game. Catholic New Iberia, Joe Lissard, a really good quarterback at Carver with 3 major commitments, including Raheem Falcons, who's an Alabama commitment. Their fine wide receiver. Country Day, off of a big win over St. Edmunds at Kentwood. The Kangaroos are really good under David Career. They have a chance to get to the Dome, in my opinion. Speaking of teams that can get to the Dome, West St. John at home. Rams are really good. They're at home against White Castle in what ought to be another good football game. I think Robert Valdez's team has a great chance. Torrance, I know you like watching high school games. You got a lot of choices there to watch.
Oh, yes. I tell you what, one game I don't want to go see. I don't want to go see Curtis play. Curtis is blowing out everybody. It's not worth going to see. Go see another game.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to have to put a lot of gas in your car because don't they play up north near
Oh, yeah,
Arkansas border, huh?
they're out of sight, so
Oh,
they're
my
making a
Lord.
long trip northwestern. Yeah.
Kenny, the Raiders, and I know it's near and dear to your heart, the Rummel Raiders. With Jay Roth, and he's got a bunch of kids that have made all district from his team. Would love to see them get to the Superdome, just because of that Rummel tradition and what they've done.
Well, they got there in 2009, but they were overmatched by West Monroe. This year's a different story. If they got there, they'd be the equal. They could play with anybody that gets here, but they got a tough path to get there. It's going to be a long haul. What about high school, Henry? Did you have a chance to play for any championships?
Yeah, when I was playing in high school.
Yeah.
Yes, we had a very, very good team, and in that area down there, Valdosta High School was the main school, and they were beating everybody, and they were the Memphis champs for years and years and stuff like that. But there were other good ball on the Florida side and on the Georgia side. It was a good competition, and we played in a small division, but we had a lot of good athletes, big athletes, and a lot of athletes with speed, and like Torrance said earlier, you can't beat it's tough to beat
Can't
speed.
replace speed. We'll take a timeout back to talk about what's to come for the Saints as we continue with Sports NOLA TV. Desi Romano's 3809 Paris Road. Chalmette's answer to cheers. You always have fun at Desi Romano's. Great place, good food on Paris Road. Come on out and check it out. I know you will enjoy it, as so many others have. We appreciate them having us here this evening once more for Sports NOLA TV. Don't forget Movember. Go to movebro.co/sportsnola. Look at the handlebar. Goodness gracious, that's starting to look awfully good. I mean, is that like airbrushed on, or is that real? Is Raleigh Fingers here? Come on. I guess I'm showing my age. Different sport, but most famous handlebar I can think of. Great pitcher for the Oakland A's. Ken Trahan, Sports NOLA TV from Desi Romano. Saints, of course, travel way west. Long trip to the Bay. And the Oakland Raiders, and the Raiders 3-6. Saints are 4-5. It's a late game. on Fox, series tied. Dennis Allen, of course, was the Saints' assistant. We know him quite well. Oakland has really scuffled defensively, Brian, in their last 2 games.
I think they've given up 50 points in the last 2 games, first time in Raiders history, I think, or at least for a long, long time. And this is one of those games where the Saints have to win. There is no, they cannot go lose this game and expect to get in the playoffs. So they have to win.
Inconsistent offense for the Raiders and a defense that's leaky, Torrance.
Oh, yes. The Raiders are very inconsistent. One thing I say, we stop the run, the defense should be okay. I don't think Carson Palmer has the weapons or he has the ability right now to throw for that many yards on the Saints as of now.
Long trip west, Henry. You had to do that a lot when you play the Rams. How tough is that on a player?
Well, it's not that tough, but each game, you know, you got to take serious and you got to go out there and you got to do what you got to do. But the Oakland Raiders is just like the Chiefs. If you let them get down or you get up, and they get some confidence, then they're gonna beat you.
Yeah, I know the Saints losing to the Chiefs open your eyes, seeing the Chiefs all the time. I know that for a fact. Okay, let's take a look at the Saints' upcoming schedule. We mentioned the Raiders game in Oakland this weekend. Then, speaking of West Coast teams, a very good one of the NFC's best. The 49ers come to the Dome. And then it's at Atlanta, tough rematch game with the Falcons. It comes pretty quick, by the way, off of the heels of the first one. Then it's up to the Giants, the Meadowlands, and clearly it's all about the weather in that, Brian.
They've started this stretch. This is the most important stretch of their schedule, 1-0, and they're going to have to, in my opinion, Kenny, have to finish 4-1 out of this 5 games.
I agree. They've got to win 3 of these next 4 tours.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to like the coaches used to always tell us. Let's just take it one game at a time. Let's look at these Raiders right now, and let's not jump over them. Let's go out there, beat them, get on them early, let them go ahead and give in, and come back with a win.
Can this team get on a run, Henry?
I think they can get on a run. I'm seeing them, the play is increasing, their fight is increasing, so I think they can get on a run. I think they can do the job, but just like Trahan said, one game at a time.
Henry, it's been a pleasure having you here, my friend. Safe trip back to Missouri, man. Always a pleasure, my friend. Brian, always great to have you with us. Torrance, you as well, my friend.
Glad to be
and we thank all of you for listening. Want to thank Adam and Andrew and Lenny and the entire crew for doing a great job. As always, thanks to Desi Romano for having us here once again today. Tune in next week, same time, on WHNO for sportsNOLAtv. Until then, I'm Ken Trahan saying thanks for joining us. Be a good sport. God bless you one and all. We are rounding third and heading home. So long.